Reform has always been a hotly debated topic in South Africa, and it's come to the fore once more. Since the dawn of democracy, the government has been trying to redress historical injustices as land was taken away from millions of black people under apartheid. But progress has been slow, and many are now calling for a bolder approach. The window period for claimants has now been reopened, while government has proposed a new land reform model whereby farm labourers will assume ownership of half the land on which they are employed. Well, while the sparks fly, agriculture is seen as the key to lifting millions out of poverty. And this week, young people have been looking at their role at the Agri Youth Indaba that was held in Johannesburg on Monday. The big question we'd like to ask tonight is, do young people want to be farmers? Well, to discuss, we're now joined by Simo Vilakazi from the Agri Youth Indaba and Nachilalala Nkombo from One Africa. Good evening to you both. Simo, let me start with you. And the Minister of Agriculture, I understand, was there talking about the potential for job creation for young people. But let's start with that question. Are young people interested? Because there's this big rush to the cities. Do they want to stay in rural areas and be farmers?
Yeah, absolutely. Young people are very interested in agriculture, and we saw that on Monday when various issues were brought to the fore around land reform issues. We actually had a couple of young people that were profiled that have benefited of the land reform program that government has. So definitely the interest from young people is there, and they're looking to take advantages of the opportunities that exist in agriculture, but also mindful of the challenges that are there. So the interest is definitely there from young people, and they want to take advantage of those opportunities.
I'm interested in that. How are they benefiting? Just give me a taste of what's happening out there.
Well, firstly, through the land reform program that government has, as well as from the private sector, companies such as Massmart through the direct farm program have programs that are opening opportunities for not only just young people but farmers or emerging farmers in general. So that is how they're benefiting off of the opportunities that exist in the industry.
Now, Chilala, can you come in there? The agriculture minister saying it was one of his jobs to try and attract young people. Any ideas on how we go about doing that?
Well, one of the very interesting things that was raised during the Agri Youth Indaba was examples of other young people that are involved not only in the production on the farm, but the other aspects of agriculture, such as engagement in poultry breeding and also engagement in activities to produce animal feed. So the Agri Youth Indaba broadened the scope in terms of opportunities that agriculture does offer. And basically one of the ways in which we have been making a contribution towards that is to be able to present some business models and actual opportunities that do exist within the agriculture sector. Africa as a whole is a net importer of food, and our population is rising, and the global population is estimated to get to 9 billion by 2050. And so just those numbers are an indicative of business opportunities that would exist in the agriculture sector for those young people who want to be their own bosses and who would like to run their own enterprises.
It's about food security as well. And you're part of this massive effort now to get governments to put more money into agriculture to create those jobs and keep that food security going. Just tell me about those efforts.
Well, actually, this year was declared in 2012 as the African Union Year of Agriculture. It is meant to commemorate the 10 years after African leaders met in Mozambique, Maputo, to make a commitment to invest 10% of their national budgets into the agriculture sector and drive the agriculture sector growth so that poverty could be cut, food security and malnutrition that hits the continent could actually be reduced. I think 11 years after that commitment, only 8 countries have met those investment targets. So tomorrow, actually, heads of states from across the continent are meeting again to review the progress. And what we're saying is, with 2 million people that have participated in our Do Aggregate Pays campaign, are saying they should meet their commitments, but also do more and target on young people and smallholder farmers. I think we have a situation where facilities and services are not available, and we desperately need those investments in Africa for farmers to have better services, for them to have better training, and for them to have better markets, for them to be able to thrive.
So you need a form of infrastructure, and we know you need the watering operations
Exactly.
and things like that. Do you think that's what's holding back this investment? Because if people are interested, wouldn't it be sort of a natural progression? More people becoming farmers, it would just happen naturally.
Yes, naturally it would be the ideal situation, but obviously, you know, we know the economy, first of all, is such a diverse economy, and however, with that said as well, there's various opportunities that lie in the industry. If you look at the entire value chain, for example, you look at from the primary sector right through to the secondary production, there's opportunities abound in all of that. So really, young people are involved, and they want to take advantage of those opportunities that are there. We profile young people from that are involved in primary production, which is actually the growing part, as well as the agro-processing side of things, which is then the taking of whatever is grown and processing and manufacturing those goods and putting it on the stores. So really, all those opportunities, and young people are engaging with all those opportunities. And if the infrastructure investment also exists, then even better.
Like you said, it's not just the actual farming. But explain to me a little bit more about those opportunities, because previously the focus has been on these big commercial farms. And then how do you get, those old white farmers to pass on knowledge to young black men who are interested? Or is it more about finding the opportunities around? Because there's also a danger, I understand, if you have small little bitty farms. So you want some sort of consolidation in a big farming works, if that makes sense.
I think the situation really is a catch-22 type of situations, where you want people to farm in a subsistence form. However, you also want them to produce at a large scale. So there needs to be a balance of those, from the small-scale farmers as well as the big commercial farmers. But also then the biggest issue that will then play a role is mentorship. How do the commercial farmers upskill or give skill to emerging farmers, or so to speak, small-scale farmers. That then will allow small-scale farmers to reach the level that is required for commercial production. They will then in turn bring on other emerging farmers. So you keep the chain.
Is it happening
going
at the moment, or does this still need to be?
Look, it is happening. There are farmers or big commercial farmers that are doing it. But however, the emphasis is there that there should be more of them doing so.
Do you think there needs to be more investment? Final question, because you're pushing for that. And we also know, especially in South Africa, there fears that this resentment around the slow land reform process could really cause problems down the line. And Julius Malema was using this as a rallying cry during the elections, and maybe young people being urged to take up this opportunity. How do you quell that resentment? How do you speed things up?
Well, I think it's clear that the ANC, the current government, put up a plan in terms of when they were hoping to have implemented the land reform program. And now there's been repercussions in terms of the whole land issue being politicized. And quite frankly, without access to land, there is no agriculture, right? Without increased production, there's not enough output that's coming out into processing. There's not enough output that's coming out for South Africa to take advantage of export markets, and even within the rest of Africa. We know that the World Bank tells us the agro industry in total, if governments make the right investments and reforms, is to a tune of $1 trillion by 2030. So if the government keeps holding its feet back on land reform, on investments in infrastructure, on investments in technology, then those opportunities are going to go not only to other African countries, but to other economies in Asia and in Europe that are better prepared. You talked about the issue about bridging knowledge between commercial farmers and young people. What the government of Ghana is actually doing, and we had a privilege of meeting the president last week as part of our mobilization effort, is to create a commercial farming model where they have identified young university graduates who are anchor farmers and who are connected to smallholder farmers who may not be as positioned as them to take advantage of market opportunities. So I think there's a lot that South Africa could learn from other countries without really slowing down progress over here.
Final word, Simo, is this a ticking time bomb if we don't learn from other countries?
Absolutely, it is. And land reform as well as one of those issues that need to be addressed. You mentioned also in your introduction is that the urban population is growing at a much more rapid pace than it was a couple of years ago. And there's new technologies to curb sort of that challenge that exists of urbanization, you know, through rooftop farming as one of the mechanisms to feed yourself in a city, as well as various other technologies and technology and innovation.
Bring the farm to the city as well.
Exactly, and innovations play a key role as well into this thing. But definitely, it is a ticking time bomb, and agriculture needs to be addressed as a serious issue. That is why also our president has raised it as a primary or as a priority sector that we need to focus on. You know, we need to create 1 million jobs by 2030. And how is that going to happen if the policy framework is not in place, if the right people are not put in place, as well as if young people especially are not enticed to get into the sector? And that is what was one of the key messages that emerged from the Agri Youth Indaba, is that young people need to get more and more involved into agriculture.
All right, well, hopefully young people are listening tonight. Thank you both very much for coming in this evening. That was Simo Vilakazi from the Agri Youth Indaba and Nachilala Nkombo from One Africa.